Wireshark capture filters. In the fire hose worth of packets that are coursing through the veins of our network, perhaps you and I want to select just a teeny bit of that traffic to collect in a capture. How do we do that? We do that with a capture filter. Let's begin. I'd like you to imagine that you and I are in charge of this network, and we've been reading some security periodicals and we learned about some new malicious software. Now, unfortunately, this new malicious software, we haven't found a cure for identifying it yet, but we know that if a computer is infected, it does keystroke logging and it sneaks that information out to the hacker's website via ICMP messages. And it does so very, very slowly to hopefully avoid being noticed. If that's the information we have, how could we use Wireshark to go ahead and look for that type of traffic? One idea is to go ahead and capture everything, and then we can use a display filter just to focus on the ICMP after the fact. However, if we have a very, very busy network, even if we're rolling the actual capture files across multiple files and keeping them all, that could be tons and tons and tons of data to have to go through later to sift through looking for specifically ICMP. In this case, it might make sense to go ahead and use a capture filter that simply tells our Wireshark device, hey, you know what? I know you're going to be seeing a lot of packets, and I know you're really good at protocol analysis, but do this for me. Only record inside the capture file, inside the trace, packets if they are ICMP. And furthermore, we can get very granular. We can say, I only want to see certain types of ICMP messages being captured. So then, after running this for like say 24 hours, we could go back and look at it, and it would only have the ICMP messages to start with. And then we could use display filters to break it down even further from there. So what exactly is a capture filter? A capture filter is simply a filter that Wireshark is going to use to determine which, if any, of the packets that it sees make it into the capture file. So the good news about capture filters is that in Wireshark, we're controlling what packets make it into the capture. What's the negative? I'm glad you asked. The negative side is we're controlling which packets make it into the capture. And if our filter is too severe, meaning we're filtering out too much, we might not be capturing the data that we later decide we actually might want to go ahead and look at. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. It's sort of like my mom. Back when I was a young child, she'd say, Keith, take a jacket with you. And I'd say, I don't want to take a jacket. She says, you might be cold. So take the jacket with you, and if it starts getting warm and you don't want the jacket anymore, you can always take the jacket off. With Wireshark, if we think we may later want to look at additional information, we should capture it to begin with, and then after the fact, we can sort it out with a display filter. Setting up capture filters is really easy with the current flavor of Wireshark. Because we could capture, for example, let's say we have interface 1, 2, and 3, we can actually set up capture filters to control what packets make it in through interface 1, 2, or 3 if we're doing multiple interface captures. What we can sort by, as far as a filter, we can say, I want to see packets that are to or from a specific IP or IP version 6 address. I want to see packets based on a certain source port or destination port, a certain network address range, a certain MAC address, a certain TCP or UDP port. Those are all options and more that we can specify inside of our filters. We can also use the word not. So we can say, I want everything except for a specific host or a specific address to make it inside of the Wireshark capture. For our demonstration, I'm going to be capturing traffic right here on this network segment, and then we can generate traffic from this PC. If you are running Wireshark on your local computer, you can still set up these same types of capture filters on your local computer, and if you're following along, that's awesome. I strongly encourage it. The first thing we're going to do is go to capture options right here, and inside of capture options, I'm going to stretch this out a little bit to the right. In my environment, this interface right here, it's a Oracle logical interface for VirtualBox. This is the logical interface that's connected to VLAN 10. If we want to set up a capture filter, here's how we do it. Simply double click on the interface where we're going to do the capturing. And from this edit interface settings, here's where we specify that we want to use a capture filter. So for example, let's say that we wanted to filter and only allow traffic inside of this capture if it's to or from a specific IP address. So we type in host space, see how it's red? Now red says, Keith, if you just go with this right here, you are not going to have a successful capture filter. It's going to go green when the syntax is valid. So let's say host 8.8.8.8. Now that IP address is associated with a Google DNS server. So if we wanted to generate traffic for that, we could ping that IP address, or if we have a PC that's using that as a DNS server, we'd be able to see traffic to or from that address with this capture filter. Now, we could just click OK, and it would apply that as a capture filter, and we're good to go. Or if we think we're going to use this quite a bit, we could click over here on the link called Capture Filter. That brings up a new pop-up for a capture filter, and look what it did for us. It said, okay, I'm going to name this involving address 8888 because that's what this means, to or from that IP address, and the filter string that it's using for this capture filter is host 8.8.8.8 right there. So let's say we think we're going to use this capture filter quite a bit. Instead of having to recreate it every single time, with this information being filled in right here, let's go ahead and click on New, and if we scroll down, it just created that brand new capture filter for us. So we'll click on OK and click on OK here. Here's our capture filter associated with this interface. Again, this is the interface that's connecting over to VLAN 10 where that virtual PC is. So if we want to start our capture, we could specify our multiple capture file options if we wanted to right here, as we did in our video on controlling the capture. But for now, we've got our capture filter in place. Let's go ahead and click on Start. So here's our capture that's running. It's only going to be capturing information about packets that have a source or destination address of 8.8.8.8. So let's generate some traffic with that address. At my Windows 8 computer, let's do an ipconfig/all to take a look at the DNS information. And notice right here, it's showing me, okay, you've got DNS of 8.8.8.8. That means if I open up a browser and have to do DNS resolution, that should involve a packet going to 8.8.8.8 and a reply coming back. So let's go ahead and open up a browser, and Google's working. That's great. If we go to Maps, that should open up several additional DNS requests in the background. So let's close that, and let's go take a look at our trace file. I'm going to go ahead and stop this capture. And all of these packets either have as a source or a destination the address of 8.8.8.8. Nothing else made it in. Now, in addition to using the keyword host, we could have also said not host 8.8.8.8. And that would say, okay, that means everything's okay to come into the capture except for an IP address and the source or destination that's 8.8.8.8. That's how powerful adding the keyword not in front of that capture filter statement is. But Keith, what if we wanted to filter based on a specific destination address or a specific source address? Is that possible? Absolutely. We also have the not option, so we can say, I want to see everything but this source address or this destination address. Another really cool option is to filter this capture filter based on the network that the packet's involved with. We can specify a source network address or destination network address, and any of those hosts that are inside of that subnet, if they match the parameters of our capture filter, can go ahead and be included in that filter. We also have the ability to put not in front of network as well. So if you want to exclude certain networks and their IP addresses from showing up in your capture, we can do that as well. So let's take a look at setting up a simple network-based capture filter. So this is indeed still our Windows 8 machine with a changing background. Let's go ahead and verify that real quick with ipconfig. He should be on the 172.16.10 subnet, which he is, with a 3-octet mask. That's fantastic. And just for grins, let's go ahead and do a trace route out to google.com. We'll do a trace -D, meaning please do not do the DNS resolution, it just takes longer, and we'll go out to 8.8.8.8. So all of these devices are hops in the path to that final destination. And I was looking for a few networks that we can use inside of our capture. I'm going to go ahead and stop it right there. That will work. Let's go ahead and include in our capture any devices that are in the network 24.234, 24.234.0.0/16, which in English says, hey, if your first 2 octets are 24.234, we want you in our capture. If they're not, you don't get to go in our capture. So in Wireshark, let's go to our capture options right here. And inside the capture options window, I'm going to slide this over to the right to give us a little more room. And I'm going to scroll down. You'll notice that a lot of the settings in Wireshark are saved because the last capture we did had the capture filter of host 8.8.8.8. If we want to change that, we can simply double click. That brings up the pop-up for the interface settings so we can edit it. And if we want to create a brand new capture filter specifying network 24.234, all we do is this, net 24.234.0.0/16. And the green background indicates that that's valid syntax. So we could just click OK here, but if we think we're going to use it again, we could go ahead and simply create a capture filter out of it by clicking on capture filter. We could label it as hops in the path, because we know there's at least a few hops in the path that begin with 24.234. Click on new, and now we have that as a new capture filter that we can use from a drop-down list and select. For now, if we want to use this, we simply click OK and OK. And you'll notice right here, our capture filter is in place. And all we need to do is start capturing. And this capture filter should be applied. So let's go ahead and click on Start. So our capture is running. We're only going to capture packets if the first two octets are 24.234. That's it. So how do we get some packets with those addresses? Well, one thing we could do is go back to our Windows 8 machine. And at Windows 8, we could do that trace again. We're bound to get a few that are going to come back as a result of that, because that's 3 packets to each hop. That's how traceroute works. So 24.234, we should get, I'm thinking, 9 responses back indicating that our TTL expired. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Control-C to stop that. So our attempts 5, 6, and 7, which were 3 packets each, went out to 24.234. Let's open up our trace file and see if it got them. So sure enough, I'm going to go ahead and stop this capture, although there won't be a whole bunch more in here. I scroll that down just a little bit, and there's our responses that came back. And it's interesting who they came back from. So for this first one here, that's the same device who responded all 3 times. But for this one, we have 2 different devices. Somebody at 189 and at 181 responded twice. So there must be some load balancing in that path on that hop. And for the last 3, it also appears that we have a couple of different devices, also very likely due to load balancing, who are responding back to us saying, hey, I killed your packet, the TTL expired. And why did only these show up inside of our capture? It's because we had this capture filter applied to it. Another way to see the capture filter that's applied is under statistics. If we go to summary, in the summary, it's also showing us the capture filter that was used for this capture. Let's do one more as an example. Let's set up a capture filter that says, you know what? I want to collect everything I see, says Wireshark, except I don't want to see anything that's to or from a specific layer 2 address. On Ethernet, that would be a MAC address. To set that up, we'll go to our capture options right here. And I'm going to extend this to the right just a little bit again and scroll down. This is the interface I'm going to be capturing on. So remembering that the last capture filter that you use is still in place is a really important thing to check for every single time. Otherwise, you might come back the next day, you whip out your laptop, you start capturing, and nothing's showing up. You're thinking, why am I not seeing anything? It's very likely that if you had a capture filter being used previously, it is still sitting there waiting for you. So to open this up, we'll double click on this interface. That brings up the edit window. And this time, let's go ahead and say, I want to go ahead and not collect anything that's Ethernet if it's associated with my MAC address. Now we need to find out what the MAC address is of that Windows 8 box. To do that, we'll go up to the Windows 8 box and we'll do an ipconfig/all, and that should reveal what the layer 2 address is. And it is right here. If we want to just cheat a little bit, we can just right click and say mark, highlight it all, press enter to copy that. Now that's in my clipboard buffer. Now let's go back to Wireshark and we'll say host, and then I'm going to do a right click. I'm going to simply paste in my MAC address. And that green background, it doesn't tell me that all my digits are correct. It's telling me my syntax is correct. If I get the MAC address wrong, I'm going to be not including whatever MAC address that I specify right here. If I want to save this, if I think I'm going to use it over again, I can go ahead and click on Capture Filter, create a brand new filter out of it that I can use from a drop-down box later. But for now, if I just want to use this, I can simply click OK, and there is my capture filter. So now if we want to capture, we'll click on Start, and we're off to the races. So we'll go back to our Windows 8 machine. So back at Windows 8, we can browse, we can bring up a couple web pages, and if we go back to Wireshark, we've got nothing because the capture filter says, hey, don't allow anything if the source or destination layer 2 address is the one we specified. And currently that's all of our traffic. So how could we generate some traffic? One idea that I have is we could generate a broadcast from the router. the broadcast would be sent to the all ones in binary address, and that wouldn't match the layer 2 address of the Windows 8 machine, and that should show up in the packet capture. So let's grab a router. So this is R1. Let's do a show IP interface brief. And sure enough, this is the interface right here that's on the same broadcast domain as our Windows 8 machine, same subnet, interface gig 1/0, and we bounce him with a shutdown and a no shut. When he comes up, a Cisco router is going to do a gratuitous ARP to let everybody know his layer 2 address, and that is going to be addressed to a broadcast address. So if that went well, we come back to the capture, sure enough, not only did he do 1, he did 2. So here's our ARPs. The destination was a broadcast, and that's why it got past the capture filter, and that is exactly why we're seeing it in this capture. One of the challenges I often see when people first learn about Wireshark capture filters is that they see the concept, they say, great, sounds like a great idea, but they don't really practice them a lot. And that's a problem. I'll tell you why. In the heat of battle, in a production environment, when we need to zero in like a laser and dig out just specifics inside of a capture, that is not the right time to start wondering, I wonder if my capture filter is correct or not. The time to practice is right now. So here's what I'd like you to do. Inside the Nugget Lab files for this video, there's a file called practice4capturefilters.txt, and it has several examples of capture filters, and I would like you to practice every single one of them. As you practice them, make sure that they actually work the way you think they're going to work. And those skills that you gain now as you practice, you'll be grateful again in the heat of battle when you have to apply those skills because you'll have practiced beforehand. In this video, we've identified the benefits of a capture filter and gone through several examples of applying one to a Wireshark capture. I've had a great time. I'm glad you've joined me. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.